Okay, so I am recording. Um, my class doesn't begin formally until we do our ritual. Usually I start class with a few heads up, like, words to the wise or, it's in your best interest. So I spent about an hour last night, and I know you know that because a lot of you responded, reading the homework. I just bit the bullet, laid down, shut the door, concentrated. Because I really, 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 really need to know how you're interpreting Gatsby. For most of you, at least half of you, knowing that not everybody submitted the homework, I'm extremely impressed. And I'm not easily impressed. I don't give fake compliment. I'm not trying to win you over. I'm not trying to con you. I'm trying to let you know that you're only as good as the questions you ask. You know that's true. Albert Einstein, what's the universe composed of? Good question. What's the relationship between time and space? Wished I thought of it. One of you asked a question that is going to now be a homework, your first essay. You have a final essay due in 2 weeks, but I want you to do a sample essay for practice. So I'm going to outline that now. Here's what we're going to do today. I'm going to answer several questions from the homework, and you can always resubmit. Several of you resubmitted. Either you made a mistake, you missed a deadline, you weren't in class that day, you registered late, I don't care. Mr. Edwards is very simple when it comes to grading. If you do A work, you get an A. You loaf and sit around, you get a C. If you get a 0, I have no other way of communicating to you. If you get a 0, that's my way of telling you I'm grading the homework. You don't have a file uploaded. Were you absent? Did you do it? Do you have a reasonable excuse? Did you blow it off? You resubmit, and then you get your grade regraded. Now to Gatsby's questions. Now get out your notes, because this is going to be a homework assignment. I'm going to give you, today's Tuesday, I'll make it due Friday, and then I'll grade them over the weekend. It's a good question. It's one that I wished I'd thought of. Future Einstein. Oh, my bad. My bad. Now we're going to start the class. We're going to do our pledge, our ritual, and then I have the new attendance spreadsheet. So no more confusion with the attendance. All right, let's stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I got a flag outside, keep it real. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm so happy because I'm on the right track. Yes, I'm happy. There's no turning back. The purpose of this class is to cooperate, to communicate, to educate. On time, on task, on target, on to college. Not a lot of people know this. But the Pledge of Allegiance, the Pledge of Allegiance is not the Star Spangled Banner, the one that we criticized earlier for being written with racist construct about a pro-slavery movement. When you all got that, when black soldiers, they were African, were hired African American, well, they weren't American, were hired African soldiers were working side by side with the British Army to defeat the Americans. They were being paid for their services. That's the Star Spangled Banner. And the rockets let red glare, the bombs bursting in air, the ones we sing at the ball games. This is the Pledge of Allegiance. Not a lot of people know this. Let me help you, because I care. The Pledge of Allegiance was written in about 1950, 1951. It was written by a flag-making company. there was a company somewhere out east that made American flags. And they said they said to themselves, how can we make a lot of money? And they said, hey, let's put flags in schools. There's a flag in every classroom in the country. And then they created the Pledge of Allegiance. See, here's the point, and it's not a big deal. It's just a quirk of history. The Pledge of Allegiance is not sanctioned. It wasn't written by the federal government. It wasn't written by Thomas Jefferson. It's not part of the Declaration. It was written by a company. It's a motto. It's a slogan of a company that was looking to sell more flags. Perhaps Gatsby was an investor in that company. Now you know the rest of the story. So I'm going to answer three. I'm coming back to you. I know already. I get it. Whoops. We have a particularly longer reading today. Chapter 7 is a much longer chapter, so we need to move quickly to get to Gatsby. And we have 3 presentations today, so I'm going to go quickly. I might skip the Raven today. What I'm going to do is remind you that you need to be memorizing your Raven. I want to start hearing recitations on Friday. And I'm serious. And there's more where that came from. So, a couple of points. One person in the homework asked, what does Teutonic? Remember, Tom Buchanan comes from that long line of Teutonic kings. You want to know what the Teutonic kings were in that Nordic race. This was a question from the homework. Well, these are European races. The Teutons, essentially, the Teutonics kings became the Saxon kings, became the German kings, and German king is Kaiser. So Teutonic is the original tribes of Europe. These were the, well, white Europeans that started to create this concept of a white culture. That's as best as I can explain it. And then Nordic, that's Northern Europe. Also known as Scandinavia. Then you have countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Those were first explorers, somewhere between the Vikings, Leif Erikson, etc. Those were explorers that came to, to the new land long before Columbus. Those are the original kings that started purely white cultures that the Buchanans of the world are trying to cling to in a world that is being challenged by other races and immigrants. One of you, and I really can't one of you asked a brilliant question, and I only hinted at it. And this is your essay. This is your practice essay for 80 points, 250 words, 4 to 5 paragraphs. Transition words to apply is your swabbies. Since, when, also, besides, and if. I'm going to put all of this in Google Classroom. Don't freak out. You should know your swabbies by now. Somebody should have already taught them to you, not me. But I will again. Here's the question. What if the novel, comma, The Great Gatsby were written could say, well, was written. Technically, it's were. But I'm going to put was because that's how you learned it. From the point of view, we spent a lot of time on point of view of a oppressed or poor person. How would this affect the novel's meaning and purpose? What if the novel, this is a student question, I'm not asking this, you asked this. Then you shouldn't have done the homework if you didn't want more. That's like a dog with his bone. You shouldn't have been licking up that bone if you didn't want me to go out to the store and get you another bone. Because now you've got us savoring for knowledge. Now we have to have our bone. Okay, worst metaphor ever. I'm never going to use that one again. For the love of Mike's lemonade stand, where the lemonade is still 5 cents, this is our homework. This is the real work. What if the novel, The Great Gatsby, was written from the point of view of an oppressed or poor person? How would that affect the meaning and purpose of the novel? I'm coming back to you. Alexis, please tell me that you've got this and that you're paying attention, and I'm not picking on you. I just need to know you're hearing this because I'm about to say something extremely important.
Yeah.
Good. There's something that I've been dancing around. I couldn't quite formulate. And a lot of what I'm about to say, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, we heard that before. There are poor and oppressed people in Gatsby. Number one, every butler. You have to assume that the butlers are ancestors of slaves, are African Americans. That would be very common back then. Remember, I'm going to actually help you. Tom and Daisy have a butler. We don't know the butler's race, but I'm kind of inferring he would be African American, but that's not really confirmed, but it's a good guess. This butler who is taken advantage of, who has to see all of their arguments. Nick has a cleaning lady. Now she's Finnish. She's white, European immigrant. I've been to Finland once in my life. Beautiful country. Mr. Wilson is a poor, hard-working mechanic. He's white. Right here. Then there was a scene of a Gatsby butler, I think it was Gatsby, who polished so much silver his nose discolored. I always say it fell off, but that's not accurate. That's not precisely true. And he got silver poisoning. Now, Mr. Edwards, yes. Do I have to write my essay specific from one of those characters? No. All you have to do is put somebody who's not part of the white, wealthy, supreme culture in Gatsby and start telling the story from their point of view. So, for example, Tom and Daisy's butler. You could write it in the first person. You could write it whoa. Gatsby's in the first person. Nick, change the character. Keep the character a participant and decide whether or not the character is going to be judgmental or not. So, for example, and I'm not going to give you the answers here, you need to be creative and thoughtful. But here's my last point. Say you decide to go into Tom and Daisy's mansion and you're the butler. You could say, I'm a female African butler. My parents is 60 years after slavery. My grandparents were enslaved. My mother and father fought very hard, but they have been subjected to this Jim Crow world, and so they really don't have an opportunity. I spend all day polishing and cleaning. My hands are tired. My bones ache. Tom pays me whenever he feels like it. You know, in other words, even Nick says, I'm so tired of watching these wealthy people act like spoiled brats. You know he says it. He says, I remember chapter 4, I got a life too. I'm tired of hearing about these incredibly wealthy people and their problems. Most of them are based on selfishness. All I want you to do for Friday's turn in, you can turn it in Friday, is write a page or two of Gatsby from the point of view of somebody who would be oppressed or poor in that world. It would be best, and it's kind of what I'm suggesting, if you made yourself a character in Gatsby that was subservient to these wealthy people without being ridiculous. We all know you don't have to focus on the concept that these are terrible people, then they're racist. We know we're trying to get far deeper than this divide. We're trying to get into the concept of how and why people were left out of the American dream. Does the American dream apply to everyone? How can we change some of these social problems? How do we have a healthy conversation in this country about race and immigration? You got to remember, last thought, even though they were white Europeans, this novel takes place during the Great Immigration to Ellis Island. So, for example, and I've never been more serious, The Great Gatsby wrote, my bad, F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby in 1925. The novel takes place in 1922 and flashback to 1918. My grandfather, my mother's father, I'm a second generation American. My bad. I'm a third generation American. My grandfather, Martin J. Luxo, who was born in Slovakia in Eastern Europe, they were goat herders. He came to America in 1924. You remember the war that Nick and Gatsby fought in, World War I, in the Argonne Forest in France, 1918? My grandfather fought, he was drafted, of course. My grandfather, Martin J. Luxo, fought for the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. My grandfather fought against Americans. My grandfather shot and possibly killed Americans. That I'm not sure. My grandfather was shot twice by the United States Army. He was shot in the air and he was shot in the arm. We still have a picture of him in the family home in his Hungarian Empire army uniform with a sword. But then, 6 years later, he comes to America and becomes a proud American who hangs his flag every day to the day he dies. Now, if that's not irony, what is? That story fascinates me. He fought against Americans, and then he became an American citizen. Here's my point. The immigration debate, though specific to European immigration, Irish, was raging during the time of Gatsby. That was the whole point of the eugenics documentary yesterday. They didn't want these Europeans coming and breeding with Americans and weakening the gene pool because they were seen as inferior. which leads me to my second question. Mr. Edwards, what does supercilious mean? Nick constantly calls Tom supercilious. Supercilious, the word super is in supercilious. Supercilious is a person. A supercilious person is someone who thinks they are superior to others. Supercilious. So you could say in debate, especially if somebody starts to attack you, oh, right, you know, you, the immigrants, don't have a right to be here. You know what? Stop with your supercilious argument, okay? We're people too. We contribute too. %30 of the economy at the minimum comes from immigrant labor, most of that from south of the border. The state of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world that produces more food than any place on planet Earth, is completely dependent upon migrant labor. That's the whole point of Cesar Chavez's work. Okay. Alexis, good?
Yeah.
I'll keep reminding you. Okay, I gotta get my notes out. Okay, we have 3 presentations today. I'm gonna probably skip the Raven for obvious reasons. So, presentations. Peter, you've been checked in. Who wants to go next? Who's ready? Alexis, Brandon, or Andrew? And then I got to take attendance. Shucks. I better do attendance now. Otherwise, I'll get in trouble. When I call your names, you better say here, or somebody better say that they're not here or here. I can't see the screen now. Is Edward here? I can't play games. We have a lot to do. Edward, yes or no?
Here.
All right. I'm sorry to put so much pressure on you, pal. Brandon? Somebody can speak.
Wait, is me or Lozano or
Lozano, my bad.
Here.
I'm sorry, guys. It's so technical. Jimmy?
Here.
Thank you. I'll calm down now. I get it. Natalie?
Here.
Thank you. Bastion?
Here. Just left.
That's all right. They come and go. Fanny?
Here.
Marcelo? Somebody to just speak up, like Mr. Edwards, we don't see him on the chat.
Don't see him.
I don't see him.
Yeah, he's not here. Give me a second. My bad. Brian? Markovic, I saw.
Here.
Stavrala, I haven't seen him. Paraskavitis?
Stavrola's here.
Thank you. Eric?
Here.
Thank you. Rosalind?
Here.
Thank you. Elijah?
Here.
Brandon Skinner? Is anybody?
He's not here.
Okay. Johnny?
Johnny's here.
Thank you. Juan Carlos?
He ain't here.
Absent?
Yep.
Alexandra Viata,
Here.
of course. Evan
Here.
and Peter.
Here.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, who's going to go first? Ooh, Brian Oliveris. Did I mark him absent? Let me look. Brian's here now. Okay, let's go. Who's up? Liam, I didn't say your name. Anaya, I didn't say your name. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. That's because the spreadsheet was, I started in the middle. John Queen.
He's here.
I apologize. The spreadsheet, I started open in the middle. Mari Carmen.
She's here.
Andrew. Alexis.
Here.
Right? Oscar's here, right?
Yup.
Mauricio. Mauricio.
He's not here.
Anaya's here. Sorry about that. Liam, sorry about that. Guys. Caesar.
Here.
I hope you feeling okay, buddy.
A little bit, yeah.
All right. I got your back here. Ariana.
Here.
Yep. Roger. Tell your sister I say hi. Yazalin.
Here.
Good. Isabella. Jose.
He ain't here.
Okay, so whoever caught that, good catch. My bad. The spreadsheet is 2 pages, not 1. You can see I made a mistake yesterday. I left these blank, but that's okay because I took paper notes. I'll correct that later. I have my paper notes. Okay, who's up? Brandon, Andrew, or Alexis? Let's continue with our Black Lives Matter conversation. Go.
I guess I'll go.
Okay, go. Who's going?
Andrew.
Go ahead, pal.
So I'm reading A Good Kind of Trouble. And so far that's happened in this book. So the main character is a girl named hang on. I think it's Shia. I don't know how to say it.
All
But
right.
whenever like trouble happens, like it makes her hands itch and everything. So like in the first chapter, she ends up getting paired with this boy that she doesn't like because he always like annoys her and starts trouble, and he's like constantly annoying her. So she gets all mad and her hands start itching and everything. And then they start going through it, and he's like annoying her constantly. And then at the end of class, he flips over his desk because he got mad at something. I forgot what. And so her hands like start itching really badly. So she's like just scratching her whole arm basically at this point. And then in chapter 2, she pretty much meets up with her friend and her. Hang on. She pretty much met up with her friend and they pretty much like go to a class and pretty much like chapter 2 is like normal, like nothing really happened in that chapter. But in chapter 3, though, that when they go to lunch, Shaya's friend, I forgot her name.
It's all right.
Because I read all the way to chapter 8, so I can't remember everything.
It's all right.
Well, her friend is in like this Asian soccer team that like only like this church group are allowed to be in, and so they all sat together and they're playing this game at recess that like if you get caught with like something not being crossed, someone gets to command you to do something for the rest of the day. So they all you and the lunchroom, all you hear is command being yelled, and this girl got caught. So her friend dared her to go to this boy that she liked and tell him that she liked him, and it was really embarrassing. Shia said that she would have been really embarrassed, and then her friend was like, "You guys would never catch me like that." And Shia's friend, her friend, she said, "Oh, you want to make a bet?" And then she's like, "Yeah, you guys would never catch me, and you guys would never make me do something stupid like that." And then Shia's like, "I don't get why like people are like so mean and stuff like. I don't get why people have to do like that embarrassing stuff to other people."
Hey, watch this, Andrew. Andrew,
Yes,
repeat after me, and I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be condescending. I can't believe that people are so
I can't believe people are so
supercilious.
supercilious.
Now, do you get it? That's exactly what supercilious means. People that are mean and use their power or the power to control other people because they think that they are superior or dominating. You just fell into the world of the Great Gatsby, pal. Continue.
So then in chapter 4, they're going to they're going to this class, and pretty much like so in chapter 4 they go to they could choose what they want to do. Like Shia, she chose shop. You could also do, I forgot what else you could do, but I know that she chose shop. So there's pretty much mostly boys in that class, and there's only like 2 girls. Shia and her friend. She has a friend named Yulia, and so Yulia, she pretty much like has like her front 2 teeth are chipped, so when she smiles, it pretty much makes a upside down Y. So Shia, like during this class, this boy that she doesn't like, Shia, is like sitting next to her, and he's like bothering her. Like he's like, "What do you like? This and that." He's like trying to ask her stuff about her, and she's just getting annoyed at him. And then her friends like nudge her towards him, like to tease her, and then she's like, "You better stop." And so her hand started itching, and then uh and then during that part they're pretty much like hammering stuff, and so she's like hammering into this wooden, I mean not wooden, this metal thing. They're trying to make trays, and so when the guy is like, well, when the kid is like bothering her, she keeps hammering harder and harder and harder, and he's like, "Chill out, there's no mean to like slam the thing." And she's like, "Could you just leave me alone?" Pretty much. So then after that, her mom picked her up, and Shia pretty much said that she was gonna told her mom that she was gonna try out for track, and her mom just laughed at her, and she's like, "You try out for track," and she's like, "Yeah." And her mom just was laughing, but she's like, "I don't think you'll be like ready for track," and she's like, "Why not?" She's like, "Because you're not really fit for it. You're not really like the athletic one of the family." And she's like pretty much like telling her out straight, like, I don't think you should do it, and these are my reasons. And that's when I read you.
Excellent work. I have you put down here as completed your project. We're going to move on after one question just because we're brief on time. But good choice. In your opinion, are the themes of your novel similar to those of the themes of Gatsby?
I don't really think so because of like there's just a lot of things like different. Like Shia, she's pretty much going through elementary school. No, she's going through middle school. While Gatsby is pretty much like taking place with older people that like understand the world better, and they have like a greater like sense of like when to do something and when not to do something. And like Shia, she's pretty much in middle school, which means like a lot of dumb things are gonna happen.
Okay.
In a way, it's sort of like the opposite of Gatsby.
Yeah,
In Gatsby, you have pretty much the higher ups of the food chain, while in your story, your main character, you're pretty much on the lowest of the low, the lower hierarchies and such, the oppressed, etc.
pretty much. Yeah,
Okay. I've not read the book, but it sounds great. Sounds like it should be in my class library.
it's a really good book.
It sounds good. I wish I had more time to discuss.
I woke up at 7 to read the book before class yesterday.
Okay.
I wanted to read some, and I lost track of time, and I read all the way to just before class.
What's it called again?
A Good Kind of Trouble.
Oh, yeah, I remember seeing that one. What an interesting concept. Who's the author?
I forgot. I have to look.
One of these days I'll have to read that. Great job. Brandon or Alexis? That's Liz.
I'll go next.
Who?
Alexis.
All right, go ahead.
So the book I read is called Zero Rights Sit-In, and basically it's about like well, it begins where it says like that there was like that and it was the end of slavery, but there was still like unequal treatment because like the segregation of public places like schools, restaurants, and diners and stuff like that. And it's like about the beginning is about like a 14-year-old kid who they said flirted with a white woman, was tortured and killed by two white men, and they were found not guilty. And after that, there was like a movement where four young black men sat at a counter, which was white people only, knowing they wouldn't get served. But it was to declare their stance at that injustice. And while they did that, people assaulted them, threw food at them, and other stuff. And the author that's writing it also mentions that it would be impossible to hate a sickness because the author says that the whites had an incurable disease in its final stage, and uh and it's and then they did it. The four students did it again on February 2nd. They returned along with 12 plus more students, and after that, they took almost 65 seats at the counter. And while that was happening, they got to up to 300 people there, and there was arrests made because people were intimidating the protesters. and it got so big, the movement, that it spread to like 55 cities in 13 states, and that helped end the white only policy in world wars that summer. Yeah,
See,
and
go ahead.
yeah.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, class. We are keeping the conversation going. The lunch counter sit-ins is where Dr. King started to make his mark. Now let's be very clear. The modern civil rights movement that led to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 started in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955 by a young woman named Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks got on the city bus that night after a long day at work, and she sat in the white-only section of the bus up front. She refused to give up her seat to go sit in what they called then, quote, the colored section. That's what it was called. That's what it would have been physically labeled and stenciled. She sparked the great civil rights movement. Dr. King was a young pastor working at that time, trying to make a name for himself, if you will. He caught attention. He caught word of the Rosa Parks bus conflict, and then he organized the Montgomery bus boycott, where they boycotted riding the bus at all. Now, for the purposes of history, and I have the photograph somewhere in the house, I've been on the Rosa Parks bus. It's memorialized in a museum in Michigan. It's at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. You can go on the bus. It's very chilling. It's a yellow and green city bus. It's yellow and green. I got a picture of it downstairs. I have to flip through my files. I had it at school. I brought it home because I knew we would be, I don't know, I just did.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard somewhere that Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to do that. It was like a teenage pregnant student or something like that. But they said that it wouldn't like be the same, so they chose Rosa Parks instead of the other student.
Yeah, that's always out there in the complexities of history. If you recall, when I was talking about the Nordic race earlier, I said they came over to North America long before Columbus, but yet Columbus gets the reputation as founding America. Those are the quirks of history. You know, when they get into the history books, it's hard to rewrite that. That's a beautiful point. We're trying to be accurate with our history. Rosa Parks is the legend. She gets the publicity. When she was interviewed later, she was arrested. She was definitely arrested and sent to county jail. There's no doubt about that. When she was interviewed later by reporters, they said, "Why didn't you just give up your seat?" And she said, "I was too tired after a long day of work." The Rosa Parks seat, if you get on the Rosa Parks bus, is the passenger side fourth seat, and I sat in it. And you feel like a lot of things, like if you go to certain places in the world, you feel the presence. And only Mr. Edwards could go here. There's nobody else who could tell you this story. When I got on the Rosa Parks bus, I was by myself. I was sitting in her seat, and I was thinking, wow, the lady that started this Civil Rights Act, and a bunch of little kids ran on the bus, and they were little African-American kids. They ran on the bus, and they ran and sat in the back of the bus, because that's what little kids do, right? It's cool to sit in the back of the bus. And I said, hey, me, Mr. Edwards, even teaching these kids, I said, hey, you guys are sitting in the wrong place. You're supposed to want to sit up front. And they go, oh, no, that's not cool. And I'm like, okay, never mind. It's so funny. I'll never forget that. They didn't want to sit up front. They wanted to sit in the back because it was cool. Worth 50 years ago, sitting in the back was required because of the color of your skin, because you were second-class citizen. The great, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the great ironies of history. The little kid, the civil rights protester. They're both in the back of the bus for different reasons.
History has a lot of ironic moments.
Isn't that?
A lot of ironic moments.
Here, I'll show you the Rosa Parks bus. It's yellow and green chromatic. It's very cool. I have a pic. I've sat in it. It's in Henry Ford Museum. It's a 5-hour drive from Chicago. Of course, during the pandemic, you can't go.
Oof.
It'll be closed. I'll show it to you. It's a city bus. There she is. I told you. That is the Rosa Parks bus. You go in here. This is the passenger side, right where the steering wheel is not, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. She sat right here, and then there was a cutoff. She was there. There would have been a sign. Now that I can't remember. There would have been a sign. Oh, I'm confused now. I don't know all of that, but there would have been a clear understanding that the first the first rows to a certain point would have said whites only, and then after that it would have said colored section. Brandon Lozano, what do you got for us?
All right, so the book I read is A Few Drops: The Chicago Race Riot of 1919. The main character is John Turner Harris, a 14-year-old with his friends. The date was July 27, 1919. The day that would change the life of many of the main character, John Turner Harris, and made the whole city of Chicago to think where they were and where they would actually be headed into the near future. The morning was like every other Sunday except the extreme heat, unbearable type of heat. Temperatures would reach up to 96 degrees Fahrenheit. Only the ones who were able to afford new technology like fans were able to keep themselves cool, while everybody else had to open up windows and go outside because the heat would be trapped into the buildings, making them into ovens. They all had parks where they could go to make a picnic and cool down in the under the trees in the shade. And there was beaches. There were 3 brothers who decided to go to the beach on foot, where they hopped on a produce truck that was heading towards the beach. The white swam in the 29th Street beach, and the 26th Street beach was equipped with towels and lockers with no charge. After the 3 boys jumped in the water, they didn't know how to swim very well, so they held onto a raft, each going down in the water for a few seconds to cool down. After some time, they started drifting more towards the 29th Street beach. After a few blacks said to have crossed the imaginary line between the 2 beaches, they were chased down by white men and were getting rocks and stones thrown at. After the blacks returned to the white. After the blacks returned to the white group with rocks and throwing of their own. One of the 3 boys went underwater and was coming back up, and while was coming back up, was hit by a stone by a white man and went back underwater. One of the other boys that was with him went down underwater to pick him back up, where he saw a lot of blood in the water. The boys went back to the 26th Street beach and told the black lifeguard that what had happened, and the lifeguard sent a boat to search. After that, the 2 boys started telling the story to shore, on the shore to everyone. After an hour of the boy being underwater, a group of both black and whites went to help search the body and found the body lifeless. After that, he was scared about what type of trouble he would be in because of his friend and because he was swimming on a Sunday. He thought if his parents ever saw him at the beach, if his parents never saw him at the beach, they would never be caught being at the beach. So he, so he gathered the rest of the boys and went on a bus nearly 4 miles away to the 55th Street beach. One of the boys that passed away was buried a few days after by his mother. One of the other boys had bad news. The tailor he worked for became very ill, and word had it that the heirs were planning to claim him and sell him to slavery. Before this could ever happen, he decided to apply to the courts for protection of slavery. There was a part in Chicago where both blacks and whites lived peacefully. They were able to marry whoever they wanted. They could buy homes and open shops, and even sign their children up to public education. Still, though, Illinois had black laws they that they know the truth, quote unquote, about what's going on, and that they had freedoms, but they were still not equal. Blacks did not think it was fair that whites that were immigrants had the rights that white people here in America had. All blacks were scared because at any time outside their homes, their freedom could be challenged by whites and officers. Many blacks and sometimes uh, whites went out to strike back and make a plan that was about what was to be done. They formed 7 patrols of 6 men each to look out for slave catchers, in which they would protect all the blacks. As slave catchers found that there were 4 slaves on a black free man's land, um, uh, they went into search, where a free black man sounded a horn, which told the neighboring people to come together, armed with pitchforks and weapons, to attack the slave catchers to protect all the 4 slaves on the land. The slaves scattered and were able to find safety and shelter, and one of the slave catchers was killed, and some members of the patrol were arrested by other officers. To cover the legal fees, some men stepped up and conducted a fundraiser to raise money for the legal things. After all this, in the early 1965, Illinois struck down on the black laws and ratified the 13th Amendment, which means the end of slavery. 3 years later, the 14th Amendment passed, which gave blacks full citizenship. Then another 2 years later, the 15th Amendment was passed, which gave black men the right to vote. In 1871, John Jones became the first Chicagoan selected in political office. By the time he passed away 8 years later, the next black generation were eager to and hard at work to claim their people the bounty of their freedom. That's basically all up to what I read.
Excellent historical connection to Chicago, especially. I'm not familiar with the 1919 race riots in Chicago, though I know of their existence. You have to remember one thing that Dr. King said. He said the most racist city he ever visited was Chicago. And this is a man who was fire hosed and attacked by dogs in the streets of Birmingham, Alabama. Dr. King, who preached several blocks from your school, he preached on West Kimball Avenue. My bad, I don't know why I said that. He preached on West Jackson Boulevard by Kimball. They're trying to make that church an historic building. At one point, they wanted to tear it down and turn it into townhomes. Dr. King preached within 10 blocks of Phoenix Military Academy. And in most of his work, he lived in Lawndale, which, if you don't know Lawndale, California Avenue, Roosevelt Road, over there by the west, south, and west of your school. Dr. King lived in Chicago on and off for quite a few years. In the 1967, he was having a rally in Marquette Park which it was, we put that somewhere around Kedzie and 67th Street. Somebody threw a brick at him and opened up his skull, knocking him down with a brick. And that's why there's a statue of Dr. King in Marquette Park, which I have visited in the last, I went to Marquette Park. The last time I was in Marquette Park was a nice day. So it was pre-COVID, but it was a beautiful day. It was this year. We went there for the debate. We went to Solorio. And I took a drive over to Marquette Park on my way home from the debate. Then I got my honey from the guy in the corner. And then, of course, I got my tamale at Rosa's. Great job, Brandon. I'm putting you down. Okay, you guys did great. You see the point? We're keeping the conversation going. We are slowly but surely rewriting the history to add justice and truth and to give a more human voice to those that have not had a voice going on 100 years. A+, fellas. You fellas are in the A game. I'm not trying to play favorites here. You know that would bother me greatly. But having looked at the homework yesterday for an hour, I've got about, I couldn't rationalize more than 11 A's right now in a class of 32. So I guess not everybody's getting an A. The good news is, as noted, progress reports will come out later this week, and you'll have a better idea what you need to do to improve your grade. I got about 11 A's penciled in right now. Do your homework. Okay, let's go to Gatsby. Great job, fellas. Now, The Great Gatsby, Chapter 7, is one of the most important chapters in the novel, and it will reveal a lot. And it will take us all the way to high noon. Now, where's my book? My greatest fear is the book disappears. Because it's never been on page 3 before. And I'm gonna have to get serious now, Mr. Edwards. I think they found me because I was hold on. Let me start over. Something wasn't right there. Because I'm using a free domain for Gatsby. Don't panic. They might have found me out. I'm gonna try and go in through the back door. All right, glitch in the matrix. Let Mr. Edwards solve this problem.
Peter linked it in the chat.
What?
Peter linked the book in the chat.
Where? How did I not find it? Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Oh, I just had it
Thank you.
open like a couple of hours ago.
that sounded like Brandon talking. I don't know why it didn't come up the normal search way. It's no big deal. We found it. You got to remember, it's the reason I get nervous is right now it's free on the public domain, but I can't explain it. It's precisely because it's free that I'm afraid that one day it will disappear. A lot of things that were free yesterday, they want you to pay tomorrow. For example, if you go, okay, let me give you a good point. I'm going to come back to you. I'm using a publishing company called Planet Books. You can see it's called Planet Books. They're trying to start an ebook company where they want to take the great novels and put them as really readable ebooks. It's a very readable version of Gatsby. It's very user friendly. They want you could go to Planet Books and subscribe to their service, and then you get more personalized selections. You get all the books in one website as opposed to searching the whole web. They eventually want your money, but what they do is they put some of their services out for free to tantalize people. Like, if you like it, then buy it. It's like public television. It's free, but if you want to see more episodes of your favorite show, you need to donate. That's why I'm afraid that any day they're going to take it off because it's promotional. So now you know my concern, because I went to Planet Books and they wanted a credit card number. But Peter, good job. Brandon, if that in fact was you, good job. So what page were we on, Natalie?
120.
Good. See, when people work together. Uh-oh. You sure 120?
Yeah.
I think I need to scroll up. I scrolled down. I went the wrong way. My bad. Thank you, Natalie. How could you be wrong? So here's what we've got. We have an incredibly complicated love triangle. It's more like a love pentagram. Octagon? One of those. It's scaling in nature. Now that we believe that Gatsby and Daisy have confessed their love for each other after 5 years of absence, and now that Tom knows that Gatsby knows Daisy from before, and he's like, I should have controlled my woman. I don't want her running around with loose men. You have to infer one thing going into chapter 7. What's going to happen when Tom finds out that his...
So that's why the chapter's so long.
Okay, fair enough. Good. 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 What's going to happen when the already jealous, already hulking brute of a husband finds out that his little sweet of a darling wife is running around with another man? Let's play that out. This will take us to high noon. My bad. And it's going to get... It's going to get serious. Mature. Chapter 7. It was when curiosity about Gatsby was at its highest that the lights in his house failed to go on one Saturday night. And as obscurely as it had begun, his career as Trimalchio was over. It's like some Italian fantasy. Only gradually did I become aware that the automobiles, which turned expectantly into his drive, stayed for just a minute and then drove sulkily away. Wondering if he were sick, I went over to find out. An unfamiliar butler with a villainous face squinted at me suspiciously from the door. Of course, this is of course Nick Carraway, the narrator. Is Mr. Gatsby sick? Nope. After a pause, he added, "Sir," in a dilatory, grudging way. I hadn't seen him around, and I was rather worried. Tell him Mr. Carraway came over. Who? He demanded rudely. Carraway. Carraway, all right, I'll tell him. Abruptly, he slammed the door. My Finn informed me that Gatsby had dismissed every servant in his house a week ago and replaced them with half a dozen others, who never went into West Egg Village to be bribed by the tradesmen, but ordered moderate supplies over the telephone. The grocery boy reported that the kitchen looked like a pigsty, and the general opinion in the village was that the new people weren't servants at all. Remember, there's always this running theme that Gatsby's a huge gangster. Next day, Gatsby called me on the phone. Going away? I inquired. No, old sport. I hear you fired all your servants. I wanted somebody who wouldn't gossip. Daisy comes over quite often in the afternoons. Gatsby fired all of his servants because he was afraid they would gossip and the gossip would lead back to Tom. You need to infer here. What's going on, Mr. Edwards? I don't know. Daisy and Gatsby are having private meetings in the afternoons. Hookups. I don't know. Hey, that's your decision. So the whole caravanserai had fallen in like a card house at the disapproval in her eyes. There's some people Wolfsheim wanted to do something for. They're all brothers and sisters. They used to run a small hotel. See, all these servants worked for gangsters, so they're all hardened. I see. He was calling up at Daisy's request. Would I come to lunch at her house tomorrow? Miss Baker would be there. Half an hour later, Daisy herself telephoned and seemed relieved to find that I was coming. Something was up. And yet I couldn't believe that they would choose this occasion for a scene, especially for the rather harrowing scene that Gatsby had outlined in the garden. The next day was broiling, almost the last, certainly the warmest of the summer. As my train emerged from the tunnel into sunlight, only hot whistles of the National Biscuit Company, Nabisco to you, broke the simmering hush at noon. The straw seats of the car hovered on the edge of combustion. The woman next to me perspired delicately for a while under her white shirtwaist, and then, as her newspaper dampened under her fingers, lapsed despairingly into deep heat with a desolate cry. Her pocket book slammed to the floor. Oh my, she gasped. I picked it up with a weary bend and handed it back to her, holding it at arm's length and by the extreme tip of the corners to indicate that I had no designs upon it. But everyone nearby, including the woman, suspected me just the same. Hot, said the conductor to familiar faces. Some weather. Hot, hot, hot. Is it hot enough for you? Is it hot? Is it? My commutation ticket came back to me with a dark stain from his hand, that anyone should care in his heat, whose flushed lips he kissed, whose head made damp the pajama pocket over his heart. Though the hall of the Buchanan's house blew a faint wind, carrying the sound of the telephone bell out to Gatsby and me as we waited at the door. The master's body, roared the butler into the mouthpiece. I'm so sorry, madam, but we can't furnish it. It's far too hot to touch this noon. It's so hot that you can't even touch the telephone because it's made of plastic or, whatever. Plastic didn't exist then. It's an early form of plastic. Look up Bakelite someday. What he really...
Okay, I was about to say that.
Yes, it would have been a precursor to plastic called Bakelite.
If I remember, it was an accident. It was actually an accidental creation, Bakelite.
I didn't know you wanted to know everything, but I'd be happy to teach you everything.
Mm-hmm.
The precursor to plastic was a type of composite called Bakelite. Bakelite was replaced in 1931 by a new chemical revolution in design and structure and durability called plastic. There were three types of plastic. There was polyethylene, there was polystyrene, and then there was polypropylene. All of these plastics came from petroleum. Petroleum is also what makes oil and gasoline. All petroleum, oil, and gasoline to make polypropylene, polystyrene, and polyethylene come from the extinction of the dinosaurs. Those are the remnants of the fossils and decay of hundreds of millions of years of animals and crustaceans being absorbed back into the earth and their bodies decomposed into petroleum and natural gases, etc. That's why they're called fossil fuels. That's why the things that lead to greenhouse effect is called fossil fuels. They're the fossils of dinosaurs. I didn't know you wanted to know everything.
Thank you.
My pleasure. When I'm done with the notes, I will flash everybody the notes on Google Classroom. You can keep these, you can have these notes, which are starting to get quite lengthy, to keep forever. And then you can continue to study on your own. So don't say like, Mr. Edwards, I didn't get my notes down. I will give them all to you. I'll give you the course outline when we're done, and it will be magnificent. Back to Gatsby. The point here, the telephone is too hot to touch. What he really said was, yes, yes, I'll see. He sat down the receiver and came toward us, glistening slightly to take our stiff straw hats. Madam expects you in the salon, he cried needlessly, indicating the direction. In this heat, every extra gesture was an affront to the common store of life. The room, shadowed well with awnings, was dark and cool. Daisy and Jordan lay upon an enormous couch like silver. They're at Tom and Daisy's house. Daisy and Jordan lay upon an enormous couch like silver idols, weighing down their own white dresses against the singing breeze of the fans. We can't move, they said together. Jordan's fingers, powdered white over their tan, rested for a moment in mine. And Mr. Tom Buchanan, the athlete, I inquired. Simultaneously, I heard his voice, gruff, muffled, husky, at the hall telephone. Gatsby stood in the center of the crimson carpet and gazed around with fascinated eyes. Daisy watched him and laughed, her sweet, exciting laugh. A tiny gust of powder rose from her bosom into the air. All right, stop. Wow. Now they're at Tom and Daisy's house. Tom is on the phone. Just to be clear, in case you get confused later, he's talking to Mr. Wilson about selling him that car so Wilson can make money. Jordan and Daisy are reclining like the socialites they are in totally hot weather. Gatsby standing with his hands in his pocket on a red carpet. There's no way this is going to end well. Or not. I don't know. You tell me. The rumor is, whispered Jordan, that's... Oh, shucks. Now, wait a minute. I know I got this right. Right? They think he's talking... I know I'm right. They think that he's talking to Myrtle, Tom's mistress. But I know that's not true. You'll see. The rumor is, whispered Jordan, that's Tom's girl on the telephone. We were silent. The voice in the hall rose with an annoyance. Very well, then. This is Tom talking. This is, like I said, he's talking to Mr. Wilson. Very well, then. I won't sell you the car at all. I'm under no obligations to you at all. And as for your bothering me about it at lunchtime, I won't stand that at all. Holding down the receiver, said Daisy cynically. No, he's not, I assured her. It's a bona fide deal. I happen to know about it. Tom flung open the door, blocked out its space for a moment with his thick body, and hurried into the room. Mr. Gatsby, he pulled out his broad, flat hand with well-concealed dislike. I'm glad to see you, sir, Nick. Make us a cold drink, cried Daisy. As he left the room again, she got up and went over to Gatsby and pulled his face down, kissing him on the mouth. You know I love you, she murmured. You forgot there's a lady present, said Jordan. Daisy looked around doubtfully. You kissed Nick, too. What a low, vulgar girl. I don't care, cried Daisy and began to clog on the brick fireplace. Then she remembered the heat and sat down guiltily on the couch just as freshly laundered nurse leading a little girl came into the room. Her little baby daughter's coming in. In the middle of her own house, with Tom in the next room, with Jordan on the couch watching, she plants one right on Gatsby's lips. Now, this is Daisy talking to her little baby girl. Blessed, precious, she crooned, holding out her arms. Come to your own mother that loves you. The child, the thing that always gets me is we don't know this kid's name. The child, relinquished by the nurse, rushed across the room and rooted shyly into her mother's dress. It's like she doesn't even know her own mother. She's being raised by nurses. The blessed precious. Did mother get powder on your old yellowy hair? Stand up now and say howdy do. Gatsby and I, that's Nick, turned and leaned down and took the small child's reluctant hand. Afterward, he kept looking at the child with surprise. I don't think he had ever really believed in its existence before. I got Daisy dressed before luncheon, said the child. I got dressed before the luncheon, said the child, turned eagerly to Daisy. That's because your mother wanted to show you off. Her face bent into the single wrinkle of the small white neck. You dream, you absolute little dream. Yes, admitted the child calmly. Aunt Jordan's got on a white dress, too. How do you like mother's friends? Daisy turned around so that the faced Gatsby. Do you think they're pretty? Where's Daddy? Ouch. Ouch. She doesn't look like her father, explained Daisy. She looks like me. She's got my hair and shape of the face. Daisy sat back upon the couch. The nurse took a step forward and held out her hand. Come, Pammy. Goodbye, sweetheart. Her nickname's Pammy. With a reluctant backward glance, the well-disciplined child held to her nurse's hand and was pulled out the door, just as Tom came back, preceding 4 gin rickeys that clicked full of ice. Gatsby took up his drink. They certainly look cool, he said with visible tension. They certainly look cool, he said with visible tension. We drank in long, greedy swallows. I read somewhere that the sun's getting hotter every year, said Tom genially. It seems that pretty soon the Earth's going to fall into the sun. Or wait a minute, it's just the opposite. The sun's getting colder every year. Come outside, he suggested to Gatsby. I'd like you to have a look at the place. I went with them out to the veranda on the green sound, stagnant in the heat. One small sail crawled slowly toward the fresher sea. Gatsby's eyes followed it momentarily. He raised his hand and pointed across the bay. I'm right across from you. I'm right across from you. That's Gatsby speaking. So you are. Our eyes lifted over the rosebuds and hot lawn and the weedy refuse of the dog days along the shore. Slowly the white wings of the boat moved against the blue, cool limit of the sky. Ahead lay the scalloped ocean and the abounding blessed isles. There's sport for you, said Tom, nodding. I'd like to be out there with him for about an hour. We had luncheon in the dining room, darkened too, against the heat, and drank down nervous gaiety with the cold ale. What do we do with ourselves this afternoon? Cried Daisy. And the day after that, in the next 30 years. Don't be morbid, Jordan said. Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall. God, let's hope so. But it's so hot, insisted Daisy on the verge of tears, and everything's so confused. Let's all go to town. Her voice struggled on through the heat, beating against it, molding its senselessness into forms. I've heard of making a garage out of a stable, Tom was saying to Gatsby, but I'm the first man who ever made a stable out of a garage. Now here's where it starts to get complicated, class. Daisy's going to shift the narrative. Who wants to go to town? That's New York City, demanded Daisy insistently. Gatsby's eyes floated toward her. Ah, she cried, you look so cool. Their eyes met and they started together at each other. Alone in space, with an effort, she glanced down at the table. You always look so cool, she repeated. She had told him that she loved him. She loves Gatsby. And Tom Buchanan saw. He was astounded. His mouth opened a little, and he looked at Gatsby. and then back at Daisy, as if he had just recognized her in someone he knew a long time ago. Cat's out of the bag. Hey, the cat's out of the bag. You know what the feline version of this novel is called? The Great Gatsby.
But
She had told him that she loved him, and Tom Buchanan saw. Well, now that we read that, you resembled the advertisement of the man. That would be T.J. Ecclesburg, innocently. You know the advertisement of the man. All right, Tom and broke quickly. I'm perfectly willing to go to town. Come on, we're all going to town. It's too hot in the house. Let's go to town. He got up, go to a hotel or something where it's cool. He got up, his eyes still flashing between Gatsby and his wife. No one moved. Come on, his temper cracked a little. What's the matter, anyhow? If we're going to town, let's start. His hand, trembling with his effort at self-control, bore to his lips the last of his glass of ale. Daisy's voice got to us to our feet and out onto the blazing gravel drive. Are we just going to go? She objected like this. Aren't we going to let anyone smoke a cigarette first? Everybody smoked all through lunch. Okay, let's have fun. She begged him. It's too hot to fuss. He didn't answer. Have it your own way, she said. Come on, Jordan. They went upstairs to get ready while we were three men stood there shuffling the hot pebbles with our feet. A silver curve of the moon hovered already in the western sky. Gatsby started to speak, changed his mind, but not before Tom wheeled and faced him expectantly. Have you got your stables here? Asked Gatsby with an effort. About a quarter of a mile down the road. Oh, a pause. I don't see the idea of going to town, broke out Tom savagely. Women get these notions in their heads. Shall we take anything to drink? Called Daisy from an upper window. I'll get some whiskey, answered Tom. He went inside. Gatsby turned to me rigidly. I can't say anything in his house, old sport. She's got an indiscreet voice, I remarked. I hesitated. Her voice is full of money, he said suddenly. That's Gatsby talking about Daisy. That was it. I never understood before that it was full of money. That was the inexhaustible charm that rose and fell in it, the jingle of it, the cymbal song of it. High in a white palace, the king's daughter, the golden girl. I think that for the first time, it's hard to know, Gatsby looks at Daisy and questions whether or not she could ever love again, pure love, because he's wondering out loud to Nick if she's been corrupted by all that money. It's a fair question. The love of money is the root of all evil. Now, I love this sentence. Tom came out of the house wrapping a quart bottle in a towel. That's a bottle of whiskey, followed by Daisy and Jordan, wearing small, tight hats of metallic cloth and carrying light capes over their arms. I mean, they're dressed like superheroes. Shall we all go in my car? Suggested Gatsby. He felt the hot green leather of the seat. I ought to have left it in the shade. Is it standard shift? Demanded Tom. Yes. Well, you take my coupe and let me drive your car to town. The suggestion was distasteful to Gatsby. I don't think there's much gas, he objected. Plenty of gas, said Tom boisterously. He looked at the gauge, and if it runs out, I can stop at a drugstore. You can buy anything in a drugstore nowadays. A pause followed this apparently pointless remark. Daisy looked at Tom frowning, and an indefinable expression at once definitely unfamiliar and vaguely recognizable, as if I had only heard it described in words, passed over Gatsby's face. Come on, Daisy, said Tom, pressing her with his hand toward Gatsby's card. I'll take you in this circus wagon. He opened the door, but she moved out from the circle of his arm. Jordan, we'll follow you in the coupe. All right. Did I just... We need to get this straight. Because this is incredibly important to the plot. So everybody pay attention carefully. Gatsby drives a yellow sports car with a green leather interior. His seats are too hot to the touch. So Tom offers to trade cars. Tom drives a coupe. Because in an uncharacteristic act of mercy, Tom doesn't want the ladies to be driving in a hot car. Tom's car was garage kept. Tom says, I'll drive Gatsby's hot car and I'll grab my wife and the rest of you be comfortable. My wife and I will struggle. Gatsby doesn't want that. They both want to be with Daisy. So Gatsby, in a plea, in a last ditch effort, says, there's no gas in my car. And Tom says, that's all right. I can always stop. So here's where we're at now. Tom wants to take Daisy in Gatsby's car, and he wants Gatsby to take Nick and Jordan in Tom's car. Got it? Come on, Daisy, said Tom. He opened the door, but she wouldn't get in. Then she says, you take Nick and Jordan. We'll follow you in the coupe. She walked close to Gatsby, touching his coat with her hand. Jordan and Tom and I got into the front seat of Gatsby's car. Tom pushed the unfamiliar gears tentatively, and we shot off into the oppressive heat, leaving them out of sight behind. Did you see that? Demanded Tom. See what? He looked at me keenly, realizing that Jordan and I must have known all along. You think I'm pretty dumb, don't you? He suggested. Perhaps I am, but I have almost a second sight. Sometimes that tells me what to do. Maybe you don't believe that, but science... He paused. The immediate contingency overtook him, pulled him back from the edge of the theoretical abyss. I've made a small investigation of this fellow, he continued. I could have gone deeper if I'd known. Do you mean you've been to a medium? Inquired Jordan humorously, like a psychic. What? Confused. He stared at us as we laughed. A medium? About Gatsby. No, I haven't. I'd said I'd been making a small investigation of his past. And you found he was an Oxford man, said Jordan. Helpfully, an Oxford man. He was incredulous. Like hell he is. He wears a pink suit. Nevertheless, he's an Oxford man. Oxford, New Mexico, snorted Tom contemptuously, or something like that. Listen, Tom, if you're such a snob, why did you invite him to lunch? Demanded Jordan crossly. Daisy invited him. She knew him before we were married, God knows where. We were irritable. I'm going to scroll so you can see where I'm at. We were all irritable now with the fading ale and aware of it. We drove for a while in silence. Then as Dr. T.J. Eckelberg's faded eyes came into sight down the road, I remembered Gatsby's caution about gasoline. We've got enough to get us to town, said Tom. But there's a garage right there, objected Jordan. I don't want to get stalled in this baking heat. Tom threw on both brakes impatiently, and we slid onto an abrupt dusty stop under Wilson's sign. So they go to Mr. Wilson's to get gas. That's important. After a moment, the proprietor emerged from the interior of his establishment and gazed hollow-eyed at the car. Let's have some gas, cried Tom roughly. What do you think we stopped for, to admire the view? I'm sick, said Wilson without moving. I've been sick all day. What's the matter? I'm all run down. Well, shall I help myself? Tom demanded. You sounded well enough on the phone. With an effort, Wilson left the shade in support of the doorway and, breathing hard, unscrewed the cap of the tank. In the sunlight, his face was green. I didn't mean to interrupt your lunch, he said, but I need money pretty bad, and I was wondering what you were going to do with your old car. How do you like this one? Inquired Tom. I bought it last week. He's lying. It's Gatsby's car. It's a nice yellow one, said Wilson as he strained at the handle. Like to buy it? Big chance, Wilson smiled faintly. No, but I could make some money on the other. What do you want money for all of a sudden? So now here's Wilson's master plan. He's trying to save his marriage to Myrtle, who's having an affair with Tom. I've been here too long. I want to get away. My wife and I want to go west. Your wife does, exclaimed Tom, startled. She's been talking about it for 10 years. He rested for a moment against the pump, shading his eyes. And now she's going whether she wants to or not. I'm going to get her away. The coupe flashed by us with a flurry of dust and the flash of a waving hand. What do I owe you? Demanded Tom harshly. I just got wised up to something funny the last 2 days, remarked Wilson. That's why I want to get away. That's why I've been bothering you about the car. What do I owe you? $1.20. Throughout the whole novel, going back to chapter 1, Tom toys with Mr. Wilson about selling him this car so Wilson can resell it at a profit. Tom has no intention of selling him the car, but now Wilson needs the money. He's losing his wife because he's a loser mechanic. No offense to mechanics. He's just a loser. He wants to take his wife out west and start over and rekindle their marriage. But Tom's having an affair with her. The relentless beating heat was beginning to confuse me, and I had a bad moment there before I realized that so far his suspicions hadn't alighted on Tom. So, in other words, Wilson doesn't know Tom's cheating on his wife yet. He had discovered that Myrtle had some sort of life apart from him in another world, and the shock had made him physically sick. I stared at him and then at Tom, who had made a parallel discovery less than an hour before. And it occurred to me that there was no difference between men in intelligence or race so profound as the difference between the sick and the well. Wilson was so sick that he looked guilty, unforgivably guilty, as if he had just got some poor girl with child, pregnant. Both Tom and Wilson have what literature calls an epiphany, a moment of clarity. Tom has every reason to suspect that there's something going on between Daisy and Gatsby, and Wilson knows his wife is doing something, but he just doesn't know with whom. The plot thickens. We're ready to get to that point of climax where things become tragic. Watch this magic trick. Put on your seatbelts. We're going for a ride. A fast ride. A reckless ride. You might want to bring a helmet too. Buckle up. I'll let you have the car, said Tom. I'll send it over tomorrow afternoon. That locality was always vaguely disquieting, even in the broad glare of afternoon, and now I turned my head as though I had been warned of something behind. Over the ash heaps, the giant eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg kept their vigil, but I perceived after a moment that other eyes were regarding us with peculiar intensity from less than 20 feet away. In one of the windows over the garage, the curtains had been moved aside a little, and Myrtle Wilson was peering down at the car. So engrossed was she that she had no consciousness of being observed. And one emotion after another crept into her face like objects into a slowly developing picture. Her expression was curiously familiar. It was an expression I had often seen on women's faces, but on Myrtle Wilson's face it seemed purposeless and inexplicable until I realized that her eyes, with jealous terror, were fixed not on Tom but on Jordan Baker, whom she took to be his wife. Whoops. What did I do there? I don't have time for this. Myrtle never met Jordan. Oh, I got to get back here. I don't know what I did. Tired. Myrtle never met Jordan. She thinks that Daisy is Tom's wife. Hold on.
Try control and scrolling. That should help you zoom out.
Wait, what do I hit?
Control and the scrolling wheel.
It's the scrolling wheel. I got to get moving here. We got to finish. I got an appointment later today. There it is. Sorry about that. Thank you, Peter. Glitch in the Matrix. Okay. There is no confusion, like the confusion of a simple mind. And as we drove away, Tom was feeling the hot whips of panic. His wife and his mistress, until an hour ago secure and inviolate, were slipping precipitately away from his control. Instinct made him step on the accelerator with the double purpose of overtaking Daisy and leaving Wilson behind. And we sped along toward Astoria at 50 miles an hour. That's the Astoria Hotel in New York. Until among the spidery girders of the elevated, we came in sight of the easygoing blue coupe. Tom finally realizes that he's not only going to lose his wife, he's going to lose his mistress. So now he's so angry, he's racing like mad to catch up to Daisy and Gatsby, who are in his car. Those big movies around 50th Street are cool, suggested Jordan. I love New York in summer afternoons when everyone's away. There's something very sensuous about it. Overripe, as if all sorts of funny fruits were going to fall into your hands. The word sensuous had the effect of further disquieting Tom, but before he could invent a protest, the coupe came to a stop and Daisy signaled us to draw up alongside. Where are we going? She cried. How about the movies? It's so hot, she complained. You go. We'll ride around and meet you after. With an effort, her wit rose faintly. We'll meet you on some corner. I'll be the man smoking 2 cigarettes. We can't argue about it here, Tom said impatiently as a truck gave out a cursing whistle behind us. You follow me to the south side of Central Park in front of the Plaza. That's the Plaza Hotel. Several times he turned his head and looked back for their car, and if the traffic delayed them, he slowed up until they came into sight. I think he was afraid they would dart down a side street and out of his life forever. No matter what, Tom won't let Daisy out of his sight. But they didn't, and we all took the less explicable step of engaging the parlor of a suite in the Plaza Hotel. It's still there. The prolonged and tumultuous argument that ended by herding us into that room eludes me, though I have a sharp physical memory that in the course of it, my underwear kept climbing like a damp snake around my legs, and intermittent beads of sweat raced cool across my back. The notion originated with Daisy's suggestion that we hire 5 bathrooms and take cold baths, and then assumed more tangible from a place to have a mint julep. Each of us said over and over that it was a crazy idea. We all talked at once to a baffled clerk and thought or pretended to think that they were being very funny. They wanted to rent 5 hotel rooms and each get a nice cold bath. They're wealthy. The room was large and stifling, and though it was already 4 o'clock, opening the windows admittedly only a gust of hot shrubbery from the park. Daisy went to the mirror and stood with her back to us, fixing her hair. It's a swell suite, whispered Jordan respectfully, and everyone laughed. Open another window, commanded Daisy, without turning around. There aren't any more. Well, we'd be better to telephone for an axe. The thing to do is to forget about the heat, said Tom impatiently. You make it 10 times worse by crabbing about it. He unrolled the bottle of whiskey from the towel and put it on the table. Why not let her alone, old sport, remarked Gatsby. You're the one that wanted to come to town. There was a moment of silence. You see, Gatsby and Tom were starting to feud. The telephone book slipped from its nail and splashed to the floor, whereupon Jordan whispered, excuse me, but this time no one laughed. I'll pick it up, I offered. I've got it, Gatsby examined the parted string, muttered hum in an interested way, and tossed the book on a chair. That's a great expression of yours, isn't it, said Tom sharply. What is? All this old sport business. Where'd you pick that up? Now, see here, Tom, said Daisy, turning around from the mirror. If you're going to make personal remarks, I won't stay here a minute. Call up and order some ice for the mint julep. As Tom took up the receiver, the compressed heat exploded into sound, and we were listening to portentous chords of Mendelssohn's Wedding March from the ballroom below. Imagine marrying anybody in this heat, cried Jordan dismally. Still, I was married in the middle of June, Daisy remembered. Louisville in June, somebody fainted. Who was it fainted, Tom? Biloxi, he answered shortly. A man named Biloxi. But Biloxi. And he made boxes, that's a fact. And he was from Biloxi, Tennessee. They carried him into my house, appended Jordan, because we lived just 2 doors behind the church. He stayed 3 weeks until Daddy told him to get out. The day after he left, Daddy died. After a moment, she added, as if she might have sounded irreverent, there wasn't any connection. I used to know a Bill Biloxi from Memphis, I remarked. That was his cousin. I knew his whole family history before he left. He gave me an aluminum putter that I use today. The music had died down as the ceremony began, and now a long cheer floated in at the window, followed by an intermittent cry of, yeah, and finally by a burst of jazz as the dancing began. We're getting old, said Daisy. If we were young, we'd rise and dance. Remember Biloxi, Jordan warned her? Where'd you know him, Tom? Biloxi. But just so you don't get confused, Biloxi was somebody who was at Tom and Daisy's wedding who passed out from the heat. He concentrated with an effort. I don't know. He's a friend of Daisy's. He was not, she denied. I'd never seen him before. He came to town in a private car. Well, he said he knew you. He said he was raised in Louisville. Asa Bird brought him around in the last minute and asked if we had a room for him. Jordan smiled. He was probably bumming his way home. He told me he was president of your class at Yale. Tom and I looked at each other blankly. Biloxi? First place, we didn't have any president. Gatsby's foot beat a short, restless tattoo, and Tom eyed him suddenly. By the way, Mr. Gatsby, I understand you're an Oxford man. Not exactly. Oh, yes, I understand you went to Oxford. Yes, I went there. A pause. Then Tom's voice, incredulous and insulting. You must have gone there about the time Biloxi went to New Haven. In other words, Tom thinks Gatsby's lying. Another pause. A waiter knocked and came in with crushed mint and ice, but the silence was unbroken by his thank you and the soft closing of the door. This tremendous detail was to be cleared up at last. I told you I went there, said Gatsby. I heard you, but I'd like to know when. I was there in 1919. I only stayed 5 months. That's why I can't really call myself an Oxford man. Tom glanced around to see if we were mirrored with unbelief, but we were all looking at Gatsby. It was an opportunity they gave to some of the officers after the armistice, he continued. We could go to any of the universities in England or France. So now we know why Gatsby went to Oxford. After the war, he got a GI commission to go to college, just like the GI Bill. I wanted to get up and slap him on the back. I had one of those renewals of complete faith in him that I'd experienced before. Daisy rose, smiling faintly, and went to the table. Open whiskey, Tom, she ordered, and I'll make you a mint julep. Then you won't seem so stupid to yourself. Look at the mint. Wait a minute, snapped Tom. I want to ask Mr. Gatsby one more question. Go on, Gatsby said politely. What kind of a row are you trying to cause in my house anyway? They were out in the open at last, and Gatsby was content. He isn't causing a row. Daisy looked desperately from one to the other. You're causing a row. Please have a little self-control. Self-control, repeated Tom incredulously. I suppose the latest thing is to sit back and let Mr. Nobody from nowhere make love to your wife. Well, if that's the idea, you can count me out. Nowadays, people begin by sneering at family life and family institutions, and next they'll throw everything overboard and have intermarriage between black and white. Flushed with his impassioned gibberish, he saw himself standing alone on the last barrier of civilization. We are all white here, murmured Jordan. I know, I'm not very popular. I don't give big parties. I suppose you've got to make your house into a pigsty in order to have any friends in the modern world. Angry as I was, as we all were, I was tempted to laugh whenever he opened his mouth. The transition from libertine to prig was so complete. I got something to tell you, old sport, he began. But Daisy guessed at his intention. Please don't. She interrupted helplessly. Please let's all go home. Why don't we all go home? That's a good idea. I got up. Come on, Tom. Nobody wants a drink. I want to know what Mr. Gatsby has to tell me. Your wife doesn't love you, said Gatsby. She never loved you. She loves me. You must be crazy, exclaimed Tom automatically. Gatsby sprang to his feet, vivid with his excitement. She never loved you. Do you hear? Gatsby cried. She only married you because I was poor and she was tired of waiting for me. It was a terrible mistake. But in her heart, she was never loved anyone except me. At this point, Jordan and I tried to go to, but Tom and Gatsby insisted with competitive firmness that we remain, as though neither of them had anything to conceal. Somebody's got to hit mute, and it would be a privilege to partake vicariously of their emotions. Sit down, Daisy, Tom's voice groped unsuccessfully for the paternal note. What's been going on? I want to hear all about it. I told you what's been going on, said Gatsby. Going on for 5 years, and you didn't know. Well, that's not really true. Number one, somebody has to hit mute. I'm not making noise. Somebody is making noise.
Oh shit, it's mine.
Number two, Gatsby is attempting to tell Tom that he and Daisy have been loving each other for 5 years. Not exactly true. They haven't seen each other for 5 years. The assumption is they never stopped loving each other in their hearts. Tom turned to Daisy sharply. You've been seeing this fellow for 5 years? Not seeing, said Gatsby. No, we couldn't meet, but both of us loved each other all the time, old sport, and you didn't know. I used to laugh sometimes, but there was no laughing in his eyes to think that you didn't know. Oh, that's all? Tom taped his thick fingers together like a clergyman and leaned back in his chair. You're crazy, he exploded. I can't speak about what happened 5 years ago because I didn't know Daisy then, and I'll be damned if I see how you got within a mile of her, unless you bought the groceries to the back door. But all the rest of that's a goddamn lie. Daisy loved me when she married me, and she loves me now. No, said Gatsby, shaking his head. She does, though. The trouble is that sometimes she gets foolish ideas in her head and doesn't know what she's doing. Tom nodded sagely, and once more, I love Daisy, too. Once in a while, I go off on a spree and make a fool of myself, but I always come back, and in my heart, I love her all the time. You're revolting, said Daisy. She turned to me, that's Nick, and her voice, dropping an octave lower, filled the room with thrilling scorn. Do you know why we left Chicago? I'm surprised that they didn't treat you to the story of that little spree. Gatsby walked over and stood behind her. Daisy, that's all over now, he said earnestly. It doesn't matter anymore. Just tell him the truth, that you never loved him, and it's all wiped out forever. She looked at him blindly. Why? How could I love him? Possibly. You never loved him. She hesitated. Her eyes fell on Jordan and me with a sort of appeal, as though she realized at last what she was doing, and as though she had never all along intended doing anything at all. But it was done now. It was too late. I never loved him, she said. She's talking about Tom, with perceptible reluctance. Not at Capiolani, demanded Tom suddenly. He's trying to conjure the memory of a romantic place they had. No. From the ballroom beneath, muffled and suffocating chords were drifting on hot waves of air. Not that day I carried you down from the punch bowl to keep your shoes dry. There was a husky tenderness in his voice. Daisy. Please don't. Her voice was cold, but the rancor was gone from it. She looked at Gatsby. There, Jay, she said, but her hand, as she tried to light a cigarette, was trembling. Suddenly, she threw the cigarette and the burning match on the carpet. Oh, you want too much, she cried to Gatsby. I love you now. Isn't that enough? I can't help what's past. She began to sob helplessly. I did love him once, but I loved you too. Oh, thanks, Daisy. Now Daisy's saying she loves both of them. Gatsby's eyes opened and closed. You loved me too, he repeated. Even that's a lie, said Tom savagely. She didn't know you were alive. Why, there's things between Daisy and me that you'll never know, things that neither of us can ever forget. The words seemed to bite physically into Gatsby. I went to speak to Daisy alone, he insisted. She's all excited now. Even alone, I can say I never loved Tom, she admitted in a pitiful voice. It wouldn't be true. Of course it wouldn't, agreed Tom. She turned to her husband. As if it mattered to you, she said. Of course it matters. I'm going to take better care of you from now on. You don't understand, said Gatsby with a touch of panic. You're not going to take care of her anymore. I'm not? Tom opened his eyes wide and laughed. He couldn't afford to control himself now. What's that? Daisy's leaving you. Nonsense. I am, though, she said with a visible effort. She's not leaving me. Tom's words suddenly leaned down over Gatsby. Certainly not for a common swindler who had to steal the ring he put on her finger. I won't stand this, cried Daisy. Oh, please, let's get out. Who are you anyway, broke out Tom. You're one of that bunch that hangs around with Meyer Wolfsheim. That much I happen to know. I made a little investigation into your affairs, and I'll carry it further tomorrow. You can suit yourself about that, old sport, said Gatsby steadily. I found out what your drugstores were. We turned to us and spoke rapidly. He and this Wolfsheim bought up a lot of side street drugstores here and there in Chicago and sold grain alcohol over the counter. That's one of his little stunts. I picked him for a bootlegger the first time I saw him, and I wasn't wrong. Gatsby the bootlegger. Drugstore was a front to sell liquor. What about it, said Gatsby politely. I guess your friend Walter Chase wasn't too proud to come in on it. And you left him in the lurch, didn't you? You let him go to jail for a month over in New Jersey. God, you ought to hear Walter on the subject of you. He came to us dead broke. He was very glad to pick up some money, old sport. Don't you call me old sport, cried Tom. Gatsby said nothing. Walter could have you up on the betting laws too, but Wolfsheim scared him into shutting his mouth. That unfamiliar yet recognizable look was back again in Gatsby's face. That drugstore business was just small change, continued Tom slowly, but you've got something on now that Walter's afraid to tell me about. I glanced at Daisy, who was staring terrified between Gatsby and her husband, at Jordan, who had become to balance an invisible but absorbing object on the tip of her chin. Then I turned back to Gatsby and was startled in his expression. He looked, and this is said in all contempt for the babbled slander of his garden, as if he had killed a man. For a moment, the set of his face could be described in just that fantastic way. It passed, and he began to talk excitedly to Daisy, denying everything, defending his name against accusations that had not been made. But with every word, she was drawing further and further into herself. So he gave that up, and only the dead dream fought on as an afternoon slipped away, trying to touch what was no longer tangible, struggling unhappily, undespairingly, toward the lost voice across the room. The voice begged again to go. That's Daisy. Please, Tom, I can't stand this anymore. Her frightened eyes told that whatever intentions, whatever courage she had were definitely gone. You two start on home, Daisy, said Tom, in Mr. Gatsby's car. She looked at Tom, alarmed now, but he insisted with magnanimous scorn. Go on. He won't annoy you. I think he realizes that his presumptuous little flirtation is over. They were gone. Without a word, snapped out, made accidental, isolated, let ghosts even from our pity. After a moment, Tom got up and began wrapping the unopened bottle of whiskey in the towel. Want any of this stuff, Jordan? Nick? I didn't answer. My bad. Tom is so convinced that Daisy will stay with him that he says to Gatsby and Daisy, you guys go and get Gatsby's car. Go back into your yellow and green leather interior car. I'll stay here. I'm so confident that my woman loves me that I'll let her go away with the man she claims to love because it's just a little flirtatious affair. That's how bold Tom is. Nick, he asked again, what? Want any? No. I just remembered that today's my birthday. I was 30. Before me stretched the portentous, menacing road of a new decade. It was 7 o'clock when we got into the coupe with him and started for Long Island. Tom talked incessantly, exulting and laughing, but his voice was as remote from Jordan and me as the foreign clamor on the sidewalk or the tumult of the elevated overhead. Human sympathy has its limits, and we were content to let all their tragic arguments fade with the city lights behind. 30, the promise of a decade of loneliness. A thinning list of single men to know, a thinning briefcase of enthusiasm, thinning here. But there was Jordan beside me, who, unlike Daisy, was too wise ever to carry well-forgotten dreams from age to age. As we passed over the dark bridge, her wan face fell lazily against my cold shoulder, and the formidable stroke of 30 died away with the reassuring pressure of her hand. So we drove on toward death through the cooling twilight. So we drove on toward death through the cooling twilight. The young Greek Michaelis, who ran the coffee joint beside the ash heaps, was the principal witness at the inquest. He had slept through the heat until after 5, when he strolled over to the garage and found George Wilson sick in his office, really sick, pale as his own pale hair and shaking all over. Michaelis advised him to go to bed, but Wilson refused, saying that he'd miss a lot of business if he did. While his neighbor was trying to persuade him, a violent racket broke out overhead. "I've got my wife locked up in there," explained Wilson calmly. "She's going to stay there till the day after tomorrow, and then we're going to move away." Michaelis was astonished. They had been neighbors for 4 years, and Wilson had never seemed faintly capable of such a statement. Generally, he was one of these worn-out men. When he wasn't working, he sat on a chair in the doorway and started at the people and the cars that passed along the road. When anyone spoke to him, he invariably laughed in an agreeable, colorless way. His was his wife's man and not his own. So naturally, Michaelis tried to find out what had happened, but Wilson wouldn't say a word. Instead, he began to throw curious, suspicious glances at his visitor and ask him what he'd been doing at certain times on certain days. Just as the latter was getting uneasy, some workmen came past the door, bound for his restaurant, and Michaelis took the opportunity to get away, intending to come back later, but he didn't. He supposed he forgot to, that's all. When he came outside again a little after 7, he was reminded of the conversation because he heard Mrs. Wilson's voice, loud and scolding, downstairs in the garage. This is Myrtle Wilson talking to her husband, Wilson. "Beat me," he heard her cry. "Throw me down and beat me, you little dirty coward." A moment later, she rushed out into the dusk, waving her hands and shouting. Before he could move from his door, the business was over. The death car, as the newspapers called it, didn't stop. It came out of the gathering darkness, wavered tragically for a moment, and then disappeared around the next bend. Tom, my bad. Well, Tom Wilson, Mr. Wilson, who knows his wife's cheating on him, doesn't know with whom. He doesn't know it's Tom Buchanan. He locks his wife up in the upstairs apartment above the gas station. He's going to lock her up for 2 days, and then he's going to take her by force to California and rekindle their love. She will not be oppressed that way. For whatever reason, she screams, "Just beat me. Get it over with. Hit me with the back of your hand." And she escapes. She runs down the stairs of the apartment, out through the street in panic, and she gets hit by a car and killed. It's a hit and run. Myrtle Wilson, wife to Tom Wilson, mistress to Tom Buchanan, is dead. The other car, the one going toward New York, came to a rest 100 yards beyond, and its driver hurried back to Myrtle Wilson. Her life violently extinguished, knelt in the road, and mingled with thick, dark blood with the dust. Michaelis and this man reached her first, but when they had torn open her shirtwaist, still damp with perspiration, they saw that her left breast was swinging loose, like a flap, and there was no need to listen for the heart beneath. The mouth was wide open and ripped at the corners, as though she had choked a little and giving up the tremendous vitality she had stored so long. We saw 3 or 4 automobiles in the crowd when we were still some distance away. "Wreck," said Tom. "That's good. Wilson will have a little business at last." Gatsby and Daisy went ahead in their car. We don't know where that car is. Tom is driving his coupe with Nick and Jordan. They left the hotel sometime later. They see the aftermath of the accident. They don't know Myrtle's dead. They just see a wrecked car out in front of, they just see let me go back to that. My bad. Time frame is very important here. Seconds matter. Tom sees the accident. And then his first response to the accident is Wilson's going to get more business out of this. He doesn't realize his mistress's been murdered. He slowed down, but without any intention of stopping, until we came nearer. The hushed, intent faces of the people at the garage door made him automatically pull on the brakes. We'll take a look, he said doubtfully, just a look. I became aware now of a hollow, wailing sound which is issued incessantly from the garage. A sound which, as we got out of the coupe and walked toward the door, resolved it into words. "Oh my God!" uttered over and over in a gasping moan. "There's some bad trouble here," said Tom excitedly. He reached up on tiptoes and peered over a circle of heads into the garage, which was lit only by a yellow light and a swinging wire basket overhead. Then he made a harsh sound in his throat and with a violent thrusting movement of his powerful arms pushed his way through. The circle closed up again with a running murmur of expostulation. It was a minute before I could see anything at all. The new arrivals disarranged the line, and Jordan and I were pushed suddenly inside. Myrtle Wilson's body wrapped in a blanket and then in another blanket as though she suffered from a chill in the hot night lay on a work table by the wall, and Tom, with his back to us, was bending over it, motionless. Next to him stood a motorcycle policeman taking down names with much sweat and correction in a little book. At first, I couldn't find the source of the high-groaning words that echoed clamorously through the rear garage when I saw Wilson standing on the raised threshold of his office, swaying back and forth and holding to the doorpost with his hands. Some man was talking to him in a low voice and attempting from time to time to lay a hand on his shoulder, but Wilson neither heard nor saw. His eyes would drop slowly from the swinging light to the laden table by the wall and then jerk back to the light again and gave out an incessantly high, horrible call. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" Presently, Tom lifted his head with a jerk, and after staring around the garage with glazed eyes, addressed a mumbled, incoherent remark to the policeman. Police was Nora corrected the man. Listen to me, muttered Tom fiercely. Look up as Tom's broad hand fell sharply on his shoulder. "What you want, fella? What happened? That's what I want to know." "Otto hit her. Instantly killed." "Instantly killed," repeated Tom, staring. "She ran out on the road. Son of a bitch didn't even stop." "There was 2 cars," said McCalvis. "One coming, one going." "See?" "Going where?" asked the policeman keenly. "One going each way." "Well, his hand rose toward the blankets, but stopped halfway and fell to the side. She ran out there and coming out from New York, knocked right into her going 30 or 40 miles an hour. "What's the name of this place here?" demanded the officer. "Hasn't got any name." A pale, well-dressed stepped near. "It was a yellow car," he said. "Big yellow car. New." "See the accident?" asked the policeman. "No, but the car passed down the road, going faster. 40, going 50, going 60. "Mr. Edwards?" "Yes?" "The eyewitnesses said that Myrtle Wilson was killed by a yellow car, a big yellow car." "Mr. Wilson, my bad. Mr. Edwards, doesn't Gatsby drive a yellow car?" "Gatsby drives a yellow car."
Not to mention, a bit earlier, they clearly said that Tom was driving at like 50 miles per hour, so it's quite obvious that Gatsby car is clearly capable of going at that speed.
Exactly. "Come here and let's have your name. Look out now. I want to get his name." Some words of this conversation must have reached Wilson swaying in the office door, for suddenly a new theme found voice among his gasping cries. "You don't have to tell me what kind of car it was. I know what kind of car it was." Watching Tom, I saw the wad of muscle back of his shoulder tighten under his coat. He walked quickly over to Wilson and, standing in front of him, seized him firmly by the upper arms. "You've got to pull yourself together," he said with soothing gruffness. Wilson's eyes fell upon Tom. He started up on his tiptoes and then would have collapsed to his knees had not Tom held him upright. "Listen," said Tom, shaking him a little. "I just got here a minute ago from New York. I was bringing you that coupe we're talking about. That yellow car I was driving this afternoon wasn't mine. Do you hear? I haven't been here all afternoon." You have to remember, when they were going to New York, They switched cars. Tom, Nick, and Jordan rode in Gatsby's yellow car. Daisy and Gatsby rode in Tom's coupe. Remember, Gatsby's car was out of gas? They stopped at Wilson's to get gas in Gatsby's yellow car. So Mr. Wilson's first thought is that Tom Buchanan hit and run and murdered his wife. And Tom's like, are you crazy? I'm in a different car now. You got the wrong guy. But I think I know who you're looking for. Only the and I were near enough to hear what he said, but the policeman cut something in the tone and looked over with truculent eyes. What's all that? He demanded. I'm a friend of his. Tom turned his head, but kept his hands firm on Wilson's body. He says he knows the car that did it. It was a yellow car. Some dim impulse moved the policeman to look suspiciously at Tom. And what color is your car? It's a blue car, a coupe. We've come straight from New York, I said. Someone who had been driving a little behind us confirmed this, and the police turned away. Now, if you'll let me have that name again, correct. Picking up Wilson like a doll, Tom carried him into the office, set him down in a chair, and came back. If somebody will come here and sit with him, he snapped authoritatively. He watched while the two men standing closest glanced at each other and went unwillingly into the room. Then Tom shut the door on them and came down the single step, his eyes avoiding the table. As he passed close to me, he whispered, let's get out. Self-consciously, with his authoritative arms breaking the way, we pushed through the little still-gathering crowd, passing a hurried doctor, case in hand, who had been sent for in wild hope for half an hour ago. Tom drove slowly until we were beyond the bend. Then his foot came down hard and the coupe raced along through the night. In a little while, I heard a low, husky sob and saw that the tears were overflowing down his face. The goddamn coward, he whimpered. He didn't even stop his car. Tom is sane. The goddamn coward. That's Gatsby. He didn't even stop his car. Tom believes that Gatsby killed Myrtle in a hit and run. The Buchanan's house floated suddenly toward us through the dark, rustling trees. Tom stopped beside the porch and looked up at the second floor, where two windows bloomed with light among the vines. Daisy's home, he said. As we got out of the car, he glanced at me and frowned slightly. I ought to have dropped you in West Egg, Nick. There's nothing we can do tonight. A change had come over him, and he spoke gravely and with decision. As we walked across the moonlight gravel to the porch, he disposed of the situation in a few brisk phrases. I'll telephone for a taxi to take you home, and while we are waiting, you and Jordan better go in the kitchen and then get you some supper, if you want any. He opened the door. Come in. I'll be glad to order you if you'd order a taxi, order me the taxi. I'll wait outside. Jordan put her hand on my arm. Won't you come in, Nick? No, thanks. I was feeling a little sick and I wanted to be alone, but Jordan lingered for a moment. It's only 9:30, she said. I'd be damned if I'd go in. I had enough of all of them for one day, and suddenly that included Jordan too. She must have seen something of this in my expression, for she turned abruptly away and ran up the porch steps into the house. I sat down for a few minutes with my head in my hands until I heard the phone taken up inside and the butler's voice calling a taxi. Then I walked slowly down the driveway from the house, intending to wait by the gate. I hadn't gone 20 yards when I heard my name, and Gatsby stepped from beneath two bushes in the path. I must have felt pretty weird by that time because I could think of nothing except the luminosity of his pink suit under the moon. What are you doing? I inquired. Just standing here, old sport. Somehow that seemed despicable. Occupation. For all I knew, he was going to rob the house in a moment. I wouldn't have been surprised to see sinister faces, the faces of Wolfsheim's people behind him in dark shrubbery. Do you see any trouble on the road? He asked after a minute. Yes. He hesitated. Was she killed? Yes. I thought so. I told Daisy I thought so. I'd better that the shock should all come at once. She stood it pretty well. He spoke as if Daisy's reaction was the only thing that mattered. I got to West Egg by a side road, he went on, and left the car in my garage. I don't think anybody saw us, but of course I can't be sure. Sorry, Gatsby, they saw you. They saw your car. I disliked him so much by this time that I didn't find it necessary to tell him he was wrong. The car had been spotted. Who was the woman, he inquired. Her name was Wilson. Her husband owns the garage. How the devil did it happen? Oh, come on. Well, I tried to swing the wheel. He broke off, and suddenly I guessed at the truth. Was Daisy driving? Yes, he said after a moment. But of course I'll say I was. You see, when we left New York, she was very nervous, and she thought it would steady her to drive. And this woman rushed out at us as just we were passing a car coming the other way. It all happened in a minute, but it seemed to me that she wanted to speak to us, though we were somebody she knew. Well, first Daisy turned away from the woman toward the other car, and then she lost her nerve and turned back. The second my hand reached the wheel, I felt the shock. It must have killed her instantly. It ripped her open. Don't tell me, old sport. He winced. Anyhow, Daisy stepped on it. I tried to make her stop, but she couldn't, so I pulled on the emergency brake. Then she fell over to my lap, and I drove on. She'll be all right tomorrow, he said presently. I'm just going to wait here and see if he tries to bother her about that unpleasantness this afternoon. She locked herself in her room, and if she tries any brutality, she's going to turn the light out and on again. I told you this yesterday. He won't touch her, I said. He's not thinking about her. I don't trust him, old sport. How long are you going to wait? All night if necessary. Anyway, till they all go to bed. A new point of view occurred to me. Suppose Tom found out that Daisy had been driving. He might think he saw a connection in it. He might think anything. I looked at the house. There were 2 other 3 bright windows downstairs in the pink glow from Daisy's room on the 2nd floor. You wait here, I said. I'll see if there's any sign or commotion. I walked back along the border of the lawn, traversed the gravel softly, and tiptoed up the veranda steps. The drawing room curtains were open. I saw that the room was empty. Crossing the porch where we had dined that June 3 months before, I came to a small rectangle of light, which I guess was the pantry window. The blind was drawn, but I found a rift at the sill. Daisy and Tom were sitting opposite each other at the kitchen table with a plate of cold fried chicken between them and 2 bottles of ale. He was talking intently across the table at her in an eagerness. His hand had fallen upon and covered her own. Once in a while, she looked at him and nodded in agreement. They weren't happy, and neither of them had touched the chicken or the ale, and yet they weren't unhappy either. They were an unmistakable air of natural intimacy about the picture, and anybody would have said that they were conspiring together. As I tiptoed from the porch, I heard from my taxi feeling its way along the dark road toward the house. Gatsby was waiting where I left him in the drive. It's all quiet up there, he asked anxiously. Yes, it's all quiet, I hesitated. You better come home and get some sleep. He shook his head. I want to wait here till Daisy goes to bed. Good night, old sport. He put his hand in his coat pockets and turned back eagerly to his scrutiny of the house, as though my presence marred the sacredness of the vigil. So I walked away and left him standing there in the moonlight, watching over. Natalie? Yeah. Chapter 8? Chapter 8, page 157. Page 157. All right, I have to leave very soon. I have a 1 p.m. doctor's appointment, and it's at least a 35-minute drive. I have to go. I have a doctor's appointment. That's why I was reading faster than normal. Let's get this straight. In the hotel, Tom and Gatsby argue that Daisy is the one she loves. Tom is so convinced. Hit mute. Tom is so convinced that Daisy loves him that he lets Daisy and Gatsby drive away in Gatsby's yellow Sportster. Daisy's so upset by the argument between her 2 loves that she says to Gatsby, let me drive. It's very therapeutic if I drive. I take my attention off that road, as they call it. Myrtle Wilson's fighting with her husband. Myrtle Wilson can't take it anymore. She runs out of the apartment building in the gas station. She's not paying attention. She thinks she sees this car coming. She's trying to flag down this car. That's hard to explain. Maybe she wants a ride. Maybe because they don't really know each other. She's running towards this car, trying to escape.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't she running to it because Tom stopped in that car earlier that day?
Yeah, that was going to pitch that theory too. That's a great theory. That she saw that car, so she thinks it's Tom. That's absolutely true. I'm just absolutely. Like I said, there's many theories there. That would be the one you would want to write to a college professor. She is running to the car. Daisy's completely unfocused. Daisy hits Myrtle and keeps on going. Gatsby can't stop it. Gatsby tries to hide the car, though it's been seen by witnesses. This guy, Michaelis, he runs a restaurant across the street from the gas station. Plus the car, there's been witnesses because they passed this car going the other way. Gatsby does the one thing for his true love that you would only do for your true love. He wants to tell the police that he was driving, and he is willing to go to jail to save Daisy, who is now hysterical. But then she goes home, and her and Tom have these really complicated discussions. And Gatsby is so afraid that at some point Tom's going to get violent that Gatsby sits outside Daisy's house like Don Quixote and takes vigil all night so she's safe. And if she's unsafe, she's going to flicker a light on and off. And that's Gatsby's clue to bust in. The takeaway is that at this point, Gatsby is willing to falsely admit that he was driving the hit and run car. Last time I checked, the hit and run on a car that kills a pedestrian, 25 years minimum in state prison.
That is, unless Tom, like they're talking and Daisy let it slip, and Tom pretty much takes the blame.
Tom, well, we know Tom won't. I would even argue that Tom, given the opportunity, would help the police catch Gatsby, because then that gets Gatsby out of his life, and then he doesn't have any competition for Daisy's hand.
Wasn't the mechanic trying to blame Tom because he went to get gas that day?
That's right. For the same reason already noted, because they switched cars going to New York, both Mr. Wilson and Myrtle think that Tom owns the yellow car. So that added great confusion as to who was doing what and who the real driver was. And that's part of the charm of the riddle of this novel. This novel, I'm going to add a fourth dimension. I've never said this before. The novel is a love story, an absurd farcical comedy, a Shakespearean tragedy, and an elemental mystery a la Sherlock Holmes. It's a great mystery. You need to put a great detective on this. But here's your takeaway, to repeat. At this time, Gatsby tells Nick that he's going to go to the police and he's going to say, I'm the hit and run driver, sealing his fate. I love and care for you very much, but I got to go. I have a doctor's appointment. It's very important. I will post a homework later tonight. Don't panic. I will follow up on everything. Keep memorizing your Raven and hold steady until you see me post stuff later tonight, okay? I got to go. I have a doctor's appointment. I can do. Feel better.
Mr. Edwards.
Well, and everybody have a safe and pleasant day. go out. Whatever you do, don't get in a car today.
Oh, I'm going somewhere.
Buckle up, kid. Okay, be careful. You're gonna be fine. Be fine. On the streets of Chicago, 35 miles an hour, you're gonna be fine. Watch out for the other guy. Hey, here's my point. If you see a yellow sports car driving really fast, get out of the way. All right, I gotta run. See you tomorrow.
Ferrari.
Later.
9:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Bonk.